So the other day, Donald Trump was giving a speech, and during that speech, he said this.
I have to say, Miriam, I watched Sheldon sitting so proud in the White House when we gave Miriam the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That's the highest award you can get as a civilian. It's the equivalent of the Congressional Medal of Honor, but civilian version. It's actually much better because everyone gets the Congressional Medal of Honor. That's soldiers. They're either in very bad shape because they've been hit so many times by bullets, or they're dead. She gets it, and she's a healthy, beautiful woman.
So before I tell you what I think about that, I want to talk to you about where I am right now. I'm in the park out for my walk, hence the walking hat. And I really wanted to record this video here because I am sitting in the Veterans Memorial Garden here in the park. And right across from me is a stone monument to the veterans of major conflicts in which the United States has taken part: the First and Second World War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, basically the major 20th century conflicts. And then right next to that stone monument is a smaller stone monument that lists the names of Medal of Honor winners from our general area. And the top name on that monument is a man named John Wagner. And it just so happens that John Wagner was born in Clear Spring, which is the town where I grew up. And John Wagner was a veteran of the American Civil War on the Union side, and he was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for taking part in a volunteer charge during the Battle of Vicksburg during the American Civil War. And he was noted for that very brave, valorous action. And do you know what Donald Trump thinks is more important than that or better than that? Giving him a lot of money. Because that's why Miriam Adelson, the person he was complimenting, was awarded her Presidential Medal of Freedom. Because she was the first recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom under the Trump administration. Because she gave him a lot of money. Her and her husband, Sheldon, they gave Donald Trump and the Republican Party in general a whole lot of money. And in recognition of that, she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And Donald Trump says, oh, well, the medal I gave her, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, no, it's equivalent to the Congressional Medal of Honor. And it's a little better because, the people who get the Presidential Medal of Freedom, they're not all wounded and shot and dead like the soldiers who got the Congressional Medal of Honor. There are different ways to interpret what Trump is saying there. I think the most charitable interpretation, which I am not inclined to take, but let's just say for the sake of argument, you want to take the most charitable interpretation of what Trump is saying there, is that Trump is just a deeply inarticulate man, and he's not trying to say anything as awful as what it sounds like he's saying. He just can't express his ideas, and that is true. That is inarguable. Donald Trump is the most inarticulate person to ever hold the presidency or any major political office in the history of the United States. He is a cringe-inducingly inarticulate man who frequently fails to clearly express even the simplest of thoughts, which is a problem for him because the simplest of thoughts are the only thoughts that he seems capable of having. So that's the charitable view of what he said, that he did a bad job of expressing himself, as he always does. But I think it's a lot closer to the truth to say that Donald Trump was just being honest about how he feels. We know from his entire life, and especially the history of his political career, various things he has just come right out and said in public on camera, and things that we know he said not in public, not on camera, that weren't recorded, but that we can safely assume that he did actually say because they were reported to us by multiple reliable sources. We know that he has a problem with disabled people. We know that he has a problem with people who have visible physical disabilities. We know that he has a problem with people who served in the military and got wounded or killed or taken prisoner. We know that he doesn't respect those people. We know that he considers those people less than. He considers them inferior. He doesn't value them. In fact, I would go even further and to say that he devalues them implicitly and explicitly at times. One of the other people on that Medal of Honor monument was someone who carried out a brave action to rescue his fellow soldiers while he had a terrible arm wound. I don't know if he lost the arm subsequently. I don't think he did. But, if he did happen to lose his arm, as many Medal of Honor winners lost arms or lost other limbs during the action that eventually caused them to be awarded the Medal of Honor, well, then I guess he couldn't take part in the big parade, right? If Trump gets to be president again and he wants for a big parade in Washington, D.C., a big military parade, well, I guess the Medal of Honor winners who are still with us, who lost limbs during the action that won them the medal, they're shit out of luck, aren't they? Because Trump doesn't want those kind of people in parades. He doesn't like to see them. He doesn't like for them to be seen. Who wants to see that? A person who lost a limb, a person who suffered a debilitating, life-changing, disabling injury in the service of their country. Who wants to see that, right? That's just upsetting. Trump doesn't respect that. Trump doesn't respect that. Trump respects superficial strength, superficial health, superficial beauty. Those are the things that Trump values. That's why he says, look at Miriam. She was able to get her Presidential Medal of Freedom, and she's still healthy and beautiful. That's the only thing Trump cares about. And I think it goes deeper than just, well, Trump just doesn't like to see things that upset him. I think it goes deeper than that. I think he only truly values things that he finds superficially, physically, aesthetically attractive. That's who he is as a person. That's truly how shallow he is. So he just doesn't have it in him. He just doesn't understand what possible value anybody could attach to a wounded person, a disabled person, a disfigured person who acquired that during combat, who acquired that during some selfless, heroic action conducted in a war zone to protect other people. He can't fathom that. And look, I am not a rah-rah pro-military person by any stretch of the imagination. I said in the last video that I recorded here at the park, I mentioned that my father and his father are both veterans, or were in the case of my grandfather who passed away some time ago, but they were both in the Navy. They're both veterans, and I'm very proud of that because as far as I know, they both served very honorably. But I am also someone who feels like the hero worship and the uncritical deference that we afford to the military in this country is kind of over the top. So I am not usually a, rah-rah cheerleader for the military or for people in the military. But even I have to say, when someone serves their country with honor and when someone serves their country bravely, and especially when they come home carrying the scars of that service, and they acquired those scars doing something unfathomably brave, I'm sorry, that deserves more respect than rich lady who gave the president a lot of money. I think it's disgusting to draw any kind of equivalence between those things. And Donald Trump doesn't even draw an equivalent. He says the lady who gave him all the money is better than the dead and the wounded and the shot up soldiers. Who wants to think about that? That's just upsetting. I think one of the most disillusioning things for a lot of people, and including myself a little bit, is when we realized after the rise of Donald Trump, after he got elected, after he became the figurehead of the Republican Party, when we had to face the fact that it's not just Donald Trump who feels this way, it's a lot of the people who voted for him and who are planning to vote for him this time still, which is a lot of people in our lives, a lot of people we know, a lot of people in our families, in our extended circle of friends, a lot of people we love and respect or used to respect. A lot of those same people who talk about how much they love the military, how much they love the troops, how much it's just so important to them that we all support the troops. And then they vote for a man like Donald Trump. And they overlook time and time and time again the gross, offensive, disrespectful things that Donald Trump has said about people who served in the military but came out of that service in a way that Donald Trump doesn't respect. Well, they got shot. Well, they got wounded. Well, they got killed. Suckers and losers. Not as important as my Presidential Medal of Freedom, because, I gave my medal to healthy, beautiful people, and that's better than that Congressional Medal of Honor that, usually that just goes to wounded people, No, you don't. I don't like to see that. They overlook all of that. They pretend he doesn't say those things, or they make excuses for him saying those things, or they just flat out don't care that he says those things. And you realize, so when you say support the troops, when you say love the military and love the people in the military, and, they're the best of us and we need to support them and make sure they have what they need, and we need to defend them against every perceived slight and insult that anybody would ever throw their way, like all of that. I guess they don't really mean that, do they? When they say that, when they say support the troops and then they vote for Donald Trump. So they don't really mean that. They say they express respect for military service, but they don't really mean it. They say they believe it, but they don't actually believe it. Or, if you would like a more nuanced way of expressing the same basic idea, they believe that truly in their hearts, but it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't do any good. It doesn't really mean anything because they don't translate that belief into action. They say they believe it, but then they vote for men like Donald Trump. Then they support a party like the Republican Party. So their belief doesn't really mean anything, because if you hold a belief and you just keep it to yourself, and that belief doesn't cause you to create any change, to make any difference in the real world, to do any good for other people in the real world, then that belief doesn't really count for anything. That belief doesn't help anybody other than you. And I guess that really brings them full circle with Donald Trump, doesn't it? Because he doesn't ever seem interested in helping anyone other than himself, does he? He doesn't seem interested in helping anyone and in honoring anyone, including honoring people in the military, because he doesn't really value the military. And apparently a lot of the people who support him and vote for him, who say they value the military, don't really value it either, except as a superficial expression of strength. That's all they really want. That's all they really care about. Well, the military makes us strong. It makes us look strong. It makes people afraid of us. So that's what we need. That's what we want. That's the only thing we really care about having it around for. It protects us. It keeps other countries from fucking with us, and it makes us strong. It gives us something to be proud of, and something to brag about, and something to pretend we care about. People act like they're surprised by this. Some people act as though they're shocked that Trump would say something like this. And I wonder, where have you been since 2015? Why are you surprised he would say something like this now in 2024? Don't you get it? Don't you realize by now, after all this, there's no bottom. There's no limit to how depraved and selfish and offensive and inhuman this man is, and the people who support him are capable of being. There's no bottom.